Hello there, thanks for stopping by. Welcome to Messing About with a Narrowboat. Now, regular viewers will know that the last few weeks I've been pretty unwell. Really heavy cold, chest infection, all that sort of stuff. I am still recovering, but I'm plodding along, just trying to keep things moving forward, which generally means varnishing stuff. Roma's poorly now as well, so the both of us are kind of going, shall we go to the boat? No, let's just get this recovery done. So, as this was our 100th episode, I thought I'd do something a bit different. In the previous episode, or the episodes that I was making the stern doors and the air vents, and I routed out some bits and bobs. So I routed out some diagonals, I routed out some roundovers, made some trim, and I realised it was a bit fiddly, and I've got quite a bit more trim to do with the router. So instead of watching Christmas movies, I was watching YouTube, and I saw these YouTube videos on how to make your own DIY router table. And I thought, that looks really easy, and it's YouTube, so of course it is absolutely dead easy and works perfectly every time. It only takes 15 minutes, right? So I thought, I'll give that a chance. It looks simple enough. Let's go and make a router table. So this episode is our 100th, and I'm making a router table. Now I've got lots of spare plywood. I've got this big chunk of 18mm ply, which is quite heavy, but I'm beginning to cut it up to make a router table. So I have cut wood to make the sides, and I had a chunk of buffalo board left over from the deck boards. So I thought, I'll use that. It's not doing anything else. I haven't got anywhere else to use it. So, and it's nice and smooth buffalo board, so it'll make a perfect router table top. I just need to make a back, and then I'll assemble it all. But let me go and cut out the box, make the box, and then I'll work on the lid. I'll show you when I'm done. About 5 minutes later, I've made the two sides a back, and I've made some feet that will go here so that I can put some clamps on it and clamp it to the bench. Now, size wise, you know, it is just convenient to what I've got, whether this one happens to be, I've got 600mm of buffalo board. So I've just done the box at a proportionally size smaller. Yeah, so easiest way to do this is I'm just going to do pocket holes and put it all together. And you can tell it's scrap because that was the test piece I used to make the cottage doors for the stern. So yeah, I'm just using scrap. Could use, I guess, 12mm ply, 9mm ply, whatever you've got around. I just happen to have this dollop of 18mm ply, so I'm not going to go out and buy anything else. I'm just using what I've got. I left my tools on the boat, including my hole saw and my big decent power driver and drill. So I'm using a cheap little screwdriver thing that I've got here. And you get 6 holes cut out of it and it runs out of power. I should have brought this stuff home yesterday. There we go, one box. Now it really doesn't need to be pretty. I suppose I could have made it a bit prettier, but you know, speed is what I'm after. And I put these kind of feet on it so that I can clamp it to the workbench and that will stop it moving, which I thought was quite a clever idea. And the other thing I saw on a couple of the router table YouTube videos is people made a kind of long edge at the back so that it can hang on the side of the workbench. So I thought I'd do that as well. So the idea is that the router sits underneath the table and you screw it in from the top. So I just need to make sure that I've got access to everything that I need. So the on off switch, I want to be facing me so that I can get on and off. There's the speed control and the access. The locking lever is there. So I need to put it in onto the table that way. So what we do is we take this base off and we'll use that as a marker. I'm just going to take the screws off of here. And don't lose them because they're precious and you need them. But these screws are very, very small. So I'll need to find longer versions of that to go through the 18mm ply. Oh my. So 20 minutes later, oh, those screws were on so tight I could hardly get them off. Took me a while. I had to use WD-40 penetrating oil to get in there. Must be on with Loctite or something. Anyway, factory stuff. Got the plate. So I've marked out the center point on my board. My router has a center point markers there and there, but not that way for some reason, so just eyeball it. Okay, so that's the center. What I need to do is, first of all, mark the hole there, and then mark the screw holes. And I'll drill them out in a minute. Okay, so we've now got a pattern on the board for me to cut out. So there we go. That's in the center line. Marked out the circle, center point of there, which I will drill out. And then I've cut 4 pilot holes, and then we'll just drill a bigger hole for the machine screws. In my little box of nuts and bolts that I've had for about 40 years, I found some 4 long screws that fit the holes. So that will go through the buffalo board 18mm and into the base of the router. So drilled the hole, I'm just going to countersink them. So it's the screw head is below the surface. Yeah. So there we are, they pop in there, and the base will fasten like that. Okay, good. Drill out the hole. Drill out the centre hole. So I've got a 35mm Forstner bit. So there we are. Screw holes, router bit hole that matches the template for the router. Let's fit it all up. So that's it. Screwed the holes. Make sure, and I was very careful not to, when I countersunk these holes, you don't want to go too deep. You want to go deep as the length of the screws. If you go too deep, you know, your screws are going to be too long. So I matched the depth of the countersink to how long the screws were. There you are. One DIY router table. That's it, router bit goes in there. Now, I need to make a fence. So I'll go and make a fence. So I've made the wood for the fence and I've matched it off. I've just cut the corners off just for convenience. And I've marked a centre point. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the holes I need, first of all, to see it, and secondly for dust extraction. So I'm just going to cut those holes out. So there we go. This is it's about 100 mil, just bits I had lying around, and this is about 60. So I've just cut the hole out, same size as the router piece. So that's the router fence, the visual part there for the router bit to run in, and a bit at the back, and I'm going to make a little dust extraction box. And I've made some corner blocks just for some strength. So it's getting a bit late, and I'm just going to screw that up, and then we'll leave it to dry. So I've just put some pocket holes in it. Yes, I know you could drill it through the front and countersink and all the rest of it, but pocket hole screws are just convenient and it doesn't need to be pretty. I've also put some corner blocks just to put a bit of strength on it, moving around. That's it. So that's the fence complete, and it just needs to be moved back and forward. Now I've seen some videos where they just put clamps on the end and clamp the fence, and that was it. I've seen other videos where they've routed out a groove and put some bolts in it and used that. But taking a collection of all the videos that were online, the best one I saw was one that routed out and put some T-track in it. So I spent £3 and I bought some T-track from Amazon. I'm just going to route out a groove for the T-track. There's a bolt that goes on it, and that'll allow it to move backwards and forwards with a little bit of ease. Not really sure how far to go up, so I've decided just to go up to the centre line of the router bit. That should be more than enough. We're never really going to go above it, and the fence is never going to be more than the centre line. So I think that's the way I'm going to do it. Let's get routering. So what I'm doing is I've screwed the T-track onto my board. I've made sure it's square, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put scraps of wood at either side of it. Take the T-track out, and that will become my guide rails for my router. So, a little bit of double-sided tape. That will butt up against there. Same on the other side, if I can peel the stuff. Here you go. So, let's get the router out. Okay. Oh. Right, that's it. Routed out. And that pops in. The only thing I've got to do there is obviously it's a router, so it's rounded, and I'll take the corner off of it with a chisel. So, corner off with a chisel, but I went just a tad too far with the router, and I've got a little bit of a divot there. But that's good. Happy with that. And so that's the second one in, and I made a better job of the routering, fixed to stop. The only problem I've got now is the screws that came with the T-track are way too long, go right through the bottom. So, smaller screws. So that's my fence on. The only remaining item now to do is I've marked the centre line and the fence, and I've copied that up. I'll just drill a hole for the bolt. So the bolts go at the T-track like that, and then through a hole in the fence. So, you know, I'll sort that out now. And there we are, one fence. Easy enough to move up and down and tighten up so it doesn't move. That's absolutely brilliant, isn't it? So all you need to do really is measure up where you want the fence to be. Check that it's square, and then you can tighten up the bolts. That's it. Time to assemble it all, finish it all off. Here we are, one router table. Now, two things I forgot to do. I meant to take a little chamfer off of this edge, just to make it move a bit easier. And you meant to build a dust extraction box, which I better go and do now. So that's the router screwed in, and I've just got a chamfer bit on it. Just as normal adjustments, you can raise it and lower it as necessary. So I want to put a little chamfer on the edge of this. So let's see if the router table works. I've set the height of the bit. Access easy. Lovely. Nice little chamfer. Now the reason for this hole at the back is it's for dust extraction. So build a little box with a hole in it that the hoover nozzle can fit into. So essentially Bit there, bit on the top, and a bit at the side with a hole cut out. Obviously, you need a bit of wood that's bigger than your vacuum cleaner end. So this is, I know that's 35mm. The one on the boat's a bit bigger. Yeah, so this is only 40mm, so I'll get another bit of scrap and make a bigger box. So just like that, and just looking at some of the videos that they had, some of them had the hole. The method is keep the hole towards the bottom, and that will give better dust extraction, apparently. So that's what I will do. So that's the dust extractor done. I'm just going to leave that glue for a little bit to go off and then we can test it all. But don't do what I did with the dust box. Glued it onto the wrong side, tidied up, and then realised I had glued it on the wrong side. Definitely not firing on all cylinders. Oh dear. Now it's the next day. Overnight everything has dried. So let's go and test this router table. First thing is check the dust extraction works. So that's a little dust box. I've stuck the nozzle, hoover nozzle in it. That's all right, that's a bit of a result. Let's go and use the router table. The way you use this fence is, this router bit has a guide wheel on it, so that's going to rub along the wood. To make it work right, we put a straight edge on the fence and bring the fence up where the straight edge meets the tip of the guide rail, like that. And then we know it's square on, and that's going to get a cut right up to that particular edge. And that gives us, I've chamfered both sides, so we've got a nice chamfer. If that was a round over, I'd do a round over. It's perfectly even as well. I'm perfectly happy with that, and I'm pleased I've made the router table. So here's another example. I've changed it to a straight bit. I've moved the fence back, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out a dado so that, for example, when you're fitting drawer backs. So that'll take a dado, let's say that's a drawer base, and that fits in like that. So I'm quite pleased I made that. Yes, the YouTube videos they're pretty clear. There aren't any dimensions, really. That's roughly, and I can understand why. It's based on what your particular needs are. Big table, little table, portable table. It's just everything in proportion, really. the main critical item is whatever router you're using, it's the base that gives you the measurements that you need for fitting the router to the bottom of the tabletop. I think there's a lot of improvements that I could do. It's a little scrappy, let's be honest, but I wanted to do it quite quick when I'm not feeling very well. So I could tar up the edges. I could sit and varnish it or paint it. What's the point? The buffalo board is nice and smooth. I think if I was using plywood, I'd probably put some wax or something on it just to make it kind of a slippy surface. But overall, yeah, I'd say thanks very much, YouTube. That was mega helpful. So if you're looking for a router table, like I was, and you're looking around, you're thinking, I don't want to spend £400, £200 on a cheapy router table. I saw some plastic ones around the £60 mark, and I wasn't quite sure whether they would fit my router or any of that sort of thing. So for the cost of £3 for those T-tracks and a bunch of scrap wood that I had lying in the garage, I think I'll clock that as a success. Why do I need the router table? Well, I'm about to go and start some other woodworky stuff. We're beginning to get some traction on other bits, and I'm seriously considering making our own kitchen cabinets. We'll buy the doors, but I'm seriously considering making the kitchen cabinets. So I wanted something to be able to make roundovers, rabbets, trim, better than just doing it handheld. I wanted a solid kind of base for it to work on, but I really didn't want to go and spend the money on an expensive router table. So this has been brilliant. I'll use it, I wouldn't say extensively, but I'll probably use it around about 100 times, maybe less. So for free, for cheap and cheerful, for a bit untidy, really, I can't knock it. So we're going to wrap up here. Thanks for watching, thanks for liking, thanks for subscribing. Hopefully next episode we're back to doing boaty stuff. I've got a bit of wardrobe things to finish off. I want to finish off some trim on the wardrobe. Now that we've got it in, I looked at it and went, oh yeah, I could do that. I didn't realise I could do that. So I'll do that and put some shelves in. And I'm going to start lining up the bathroom roof. And I've got all the wood for that. I just need to sand it and varnish it. Oh joy, more varnishing. I think we're just at that stage in the boat build that everything I touch now needs varnishing. It's just taking a while now. So until next time.